Typically, you'd make these announcements, postseason. But as you guys are all aware from social media and other accounts, that Kareem has decided to forego his senior season and put his name in the NBA draft. And we wish him well. He's also decided to leave Auburn for personal reasons. It was his decision, and we do wish him well. Kareem accomplished a lot on the basketball court, and I think the frustration of the season, of so many injuries and not having and not winning, those combinations really took its toll on him as a competitor, which then led to the kind of conduct that was detrimental to the team, which put me in a position where he was suspended indefinitely. So at this point, we move forward and we try to find some offense against the best field goal percentage defensive team in the league and the best three-point field goal percentage defensive team in the country, and a team that blocked about a bajillion of our shots at Vanderbilt. So I'm not sure what that number is, but it was a lot.
Bruce, in the course of the last week and a half or so, how much discussion was there with Kareem about returning, leaving? What was this discussion? This was a discussion you had with him as far as his future previously. How much in the last week or so has that discussion changed?
We met several times, and again, I think just that, as I said, that frustration of and the disappointment and the lack of success that we were having on the court really led to it being really hard for him. And so I think every player faces this situation at some point, and it being late in the year and him being out, he made this decision. But again, it was his decision. It was not something that we forced him to do. And again, we just wish him well.
For the remainder of the year, what do you do at point guard?
Defensively, the last couple games, we've competed okay. It's really hard with Sim now. If you recall, there was a time earlier in the year when he was playing both power forward and center. And I thought he was out there thinking too much. And we said, you know what, we're just going to play him to power forward. And he warmed up to that for a bit and stopped having to think so much because he didn't have to worry about two positions. And now that I'm playing him at point guard it's really hard. And it's not just that it's hard on him offensively, remembering all the plays and what to do at two different positions, but defensively, the coverages of covering guards are completely different coverages than covering inside players. So he's got to know everything. And it's, again, and then what happens is, rather than being out there playing, he's out there having to think. So that's the challenge. It's not that he can't do it, but that's the challenge. And then behind him, you've got New Williams or Pat Kine. Pat being a walk-on. His defense, he belongs out there defensively, but offensively he's limited. And then New Williams, who's just learning. Even yesterday, as we went through practice and going through play calls and things like that, he gets them right about half the time, and that's just not it. When you already have the challenge of being a freshman, not playing the position, and not even being able to know exactly where you're supposed to go, when you're supposed to go there. Again, it's terrifically challenging. The reason why nobody else has been moved into that position is simply because Bryce Brown is playing 30-something minutes at his position at the 2. T.J. Lang's playing 30-something minutes at his position at the 3 and backing up to 2. With 3 scholarship guards, New Williams being the 3rd, there really aren't any other options to speak of. So it hasn't hurt us that much defensively. It has hurt us tremendously offensively because Kareem was not only a great scorer, but we relied on his playmaking ability too, without Dunnins and Taj Shamsuddin.
Bruce, as big picture, what does this Kareem decision do for the program as you go forward? next year and the year after that, and how you
Yeah.
build the program with a guy you thought was going to be here next year?
Well, we really did know the possibility existed that he would not return for his senior season. He was definitely going to put his name in the draft.
Right.
In fact, you know, you wait to see how many put their name in the draft this year. It's going to be 3 and 4 times more than any other year recently, because they've changed the rules. The rule change, and I've said it before, but say it again here. You used to have 1 week after the Final Four to come back to college. You put your name in, but you had a week after the Final Four. With the NBA Combine, where they invited 60 players, it didn't take place till May 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that. So the student athletes really didn't have all the information they needed to make the right decision. So they were guessing. And that wasn't fair to the student athletes. So through the NABC, National Association of Basketball Coaches, working with the NCAA and the NBA, decided that we're going to get together and say, you know what, it'll be a week after the Combine, maybe 10 days after the Combine. That way the student athletes will have really good information. Now it hurts in recruiting because you're not sure what your roster is going to look like, but it's in the best interest of the student athlete. As a result, it's going to be much harder to get into the Combine this year than ever, because there will be underclassmen that will be invited and go. So we have had to prepare knowing that Kareem was going to put his name in, and the possibility that he would leave to play professionally. Jared Harper is a point guard, as a freshman. We're prepared to play and even be in a situation where he would play with Kareem if Kareem came back. Now, the real issue for us moving forward is Taj Shamsuddin. What is he going to do? Is he going to be healthy enough to come back for his junior year? And that's a decision that Taj is going to have to make with the doctors probably this spring as to whether or not, given 2 years of soldier surgeries, does he look at a medical redshirt? He's thinking about it now. That's not a breaking news, I don't think. I think we all know that he's going to have to make that decision. If Taj makes a decision to not be able to come back and play, then yes, we will definitely be looking for another point guard in this recruiting class, and we are. But we still were, even if Kareem hadn't made this announcement, we were still looking.
So you're clearly in the graduate transfer market for a big, again, you would for a point as well, in all likelihood.
I'd say I'd say the graduate market is a market that you always will look at, but we're looking at some other freshmen and other players too. So I wouldn't put it just there at this point. But yeah, I would say that there is could be another 1 or 2 that we would add to this recruiting class.
You do mention what Kareem achieved, Bruce. For a player who spends 2 years in a program, has to sit out, comes in, plays 20, 21 games. A lot will come of this is the question of, was it all worth it? What was the point of this? Even with the wins over Kentucky and Alabama, was that in and of itself, are those 2 games worth it?
Well, that's for others to decide.
Bruce, you mentioned with him kind of at this point still guessing 50-50 on some of these play calls. I mean, how much do you kind of think back, which is that lingering knee injury earlier in the season, how much that hinders him right now?
It hinders him some, but I've never been inconsistent as it relates to his evaluation as a point guard. That sure, he would be more active defensively, but he's already active. He might be able to get to the basket a little bit cleaner and finish it a little bit more. And he can always shoot. But his issues are really a high school undersized off guard that wants to be a point. He's got the mentality to be a point, but he doesn't necessarily have all the skills that is required, in addition to not being completely healthy. So while I've been trying not to make excuses but be accurate, I wouldn't make an excuse on his injury as to why he necessarily is not playing that much better at the point guard position.
Bruce, when you say he doesn't have the skills, do you mean he can't ever play point guard, or you mean
He
he doesn't
could.
have to develop?
He could, but he's got to develop. Left hand, right hand, playmaking ability, feel, and it's something that, because of his size, it's something that he has in his future, but he wasn't ready to be able to come in and play that position. But with Taj Samsudeen and Kareem Canty, I wasn't worried that he wasn't ready. I was, look, hey, we could take a chance because he's a really good kid. He's a really good athlete. He can really shoot the basketball. And, I've played 3 guards where I've literally played 3 point guards. At Tennessee, C.J. Watson, Chris Lofton, and Juwan Smith started 1, 2, and 3 a lot. And then Juwan Smith, then the following year, that was Ramar Smith and Chris Lofton and Juwan Smith. So I played 3 little guys. Can't have enough of them.
Bruce, what's the situation with Tyler and his back and your thought process of playing somebody with that type of injury if they're not 100%?
Yeah, he did not practice prior to Tennessee because it cramped up pretty good on him against Oklahoma State. But we're talking about a muscle spasm and cramping as opposed to a muscle injury. He was better yesterday. He did not practice. He went through the walkthrough. He was on a bike. I would expect him to practice today. Now, today will not be a heavy practice or contact practice. He definitely will play tomorrow. When does the spasm come back? If it does, but he's at no risk to injure. So I would expect Tyler to be close to 100%.
And where is TJ Dunn's status at this point?
It's getting closer. He's getting closer. Visited the doc Wednesday. I told you last week that he was going to get the doc. Doc says it's not there yet. Quad strength still isn't back. I think that and this is a great lesson for all athletes. TJ is got that wiry frame, and he came to us about 177 pounds. He got up to about 192. So he got stronger. But in order for his body to be able to perform at the highest level, it had to continue to grow and evolve and get stronger. And strength training and that conditioning does 2 things. It enhances your performance and it prevents you from getting more seriously injured. So when you get wrapped up like he got wrapped up, I don't think a stronger quad would have kept his knee. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I'm not a doctor, but I've got some knowledge in this because I got a pretty broke knee. It would have been a bad injury, but not quite as bad if his quad was stronger. So now he doesn't have as good a knee as he had before the injury. So even if his quad is back to where it was, which it's not quite yet, it's not strong enough to be able to deal with the knee, which is not as perfect as it was before it got injured. So we're going to be looking at a countdown and going, we've got what? 4 more weeks left. Is it, when the doctor says in 2 weeks he could be ready? What do you do? I don't know. Not ready yet.
Bruce, have you gone and talked to your early signees, Mustafa, Jared, and said, hey, this is a situation, just kept in communication with them because I'm sure that they've had questions as this continues to keep coming up?
As far as losing?
As far as losing, as far as the Kareem situation, as far as not having him, as far as having a different roster than maybe they were anticipating next year.
We recruited all of them knowing that potentially Kareem would be only here for a year, so it doesn't affect recruiting. Losing absolutely affects all the prospects. And so yes, we are in constant communication with them and their families. I think they understand where we're at and why. And I've sensed absolutely no panic or concern. It's not where we want to be, but our recruits know we're building something, and that's why they decided to come here, because they see the opportunity.
As far